If you are looking to buy a brand new drone and not yet decided whether to go for the standard model or pay the additional money for special modes such as active tracking, or indeed if you have a drone already with active track built in but you've not really explored it that much and you want to see just how good it is, then this video is for you. I've been out flying the DJI Mini 3 Pro, which of course has active track built in, and I'm going to reveal and test exactly how good this drone with its active track can track something such as a car, which is of course a fast moving object in high winds, to basically see exactly how good it really is. And you do want to watch to the end because this flight and test was not without issues, and of course that I came really close to actually crashing my drone. Yes, user error possibly, but certainly not one you want to miss. So let's get into it. So what's active track then, and why may you want it? Well, active track is an autonomous flight mode. You can select a target on the screen and the drone will fly itself, keeping the target locked in to the center of the frame. Now this is absolutely ideal if you want to film yourself on a scenic walk, for example, or you may be wanting to do it on your motorcycle or just general your bike or anything like that. Or indeed it's ideal if you want to film yourself in a location but don't actually want to have the controller on show. Now, active track is usually reserved for drones with obstacle avoidance sensors, and the correlation between needing obstacle avoidance sensors and active tracking modes where the drone essentially flies itself, I would say, is pretty obvious. Now, there are third-party apps such as Litchi, which I of course have tested on the channel, allowing you to have active tracking capabilities on drones such as the DJI Mini 2, which of course does not have obstacle avoidance sensors, but of course the opinion and jury is absolutely out on how good these apps actually are. Now, shameless plug here, the idea for this video came from when I was using active tracking on my DJI Mini 3 Pro to capture some B-roll for a second channel that I actually am starting to build up. Now that second channel is called Zero Yon and it is predominantly around cars and vehicles, so just very quickly put it into this video. If you are interested in watching content such as that, please do visit that channel. I will leave a link in the video description, and of course please feel free to subscribe because I am building that channel. But of course, as you can see in the example on screen, the DJI Mini 3 Pro was used to capture some B-roll for a video I made for that channel, and it did perform pretty well. But of course that was a closed environment, and what I'm going to show you next is a more real world where there is actually obstacles and things we can hit. So on with the main part of the video. I have got the DJI Mini 3 Pro up in the air and I am about to use it to active track my friend's BMW just to capture some cool footage. And it was pretty much from the start where things started to go a little bit amiss. But we'll see whether it was really the drone's fault in a few short seconds. So basically I was a little bit slow in allowing the drone to actually follow. It was stuck in spotlight mode, not in active track. And by this point the car had already started pulling away. So as the drone does actually pick up the car and start to fly towards it to follow it, because the car generally got slightly out of sight, what bizarrely happened, the drone actually, instead of following that car, managed to pick a completely different coloured car in the complete opposite direction, locked onto that and started flying in the complete opposite direction. Now this is certainly a time for cool heads, because those of you that might have panicked in this situation might have been thinking, oh my days, what on earth do I do now? But in actual fact, nothing is going to happen. We've got our obstacle avoidance turned on. The drone is perfectly within line of sight. So all we need to do is simply select the stop and now controller, cancel the spotlight, and of course just fly the drone back to ourselves, and of course pick it up when the car actually returns. Now the reason why I wanted to show this example is of course the drone cannot perform miracles. It always has to have the ability to see the item it is tracking at all times. And of course if it does ever lose sight of it, there is a chance, of course, the active tracking will not be successful. Try that one again, and of course the car has returned, and like I've already mentioned guys, it is pretty windy today, so the drone is getting blown about a bit. Now this is a 50-mile-an-hour road, which of course there's no way the DJI Mini 3 Pro can continue at those speeds, but it's not about following the car at those sort of speeds, it's about just getting some cool shots, which of course is the whole point of the video, because after all, the drone is a flying camera. We're using using it to get some shots and footage that we can then use in a follow-up video. That's the whole point of the drone. It is, of course, a tool. And as you can see, as the drone is following the car, it's doing an absolutely fantastic job getting this cool chase shot of my friend's BMW. And this test was absolutely more than successful. So what we're going to do is pick it up with something a little bit more tricky. Now, one issue I was having with the DJI Mini 3 Pro is this constant error message that kept coming up to say that the drone was too low for successful tracking. Now, I understand why this would come up in order to prevent a potential accident, but it really has to be said that this limited the type of low-down parallel shot I was trying to achieve. And basically, this was a constant frustration and resulted in many, many takes to try and get the shot I was hoping to achieve. But it is just one downside, and like I've already mentioned, I can see why this error message would come up to try and prevent a potential accident. So now it was time to really put the drone to the test with some cornering involved, as well as obstacles such as street lighting. And don't forget, the drone is still battling the wind at this point. And as you can see, the DJI Mini 3 Pro does an absolutely incredible job, even following the car around this roundabout. As the car speeds up and the drone adjusts speeds to match, you can see just how well the drone actually does. And I think the dynamic movement of the drone as well, as it is trying to keep the car in the center of the frame, just really adds to the overall look of the footage. And remember, what we're going for as well is this isn't supposed to be cinematic footage. This is actually supposed to be active tracking, so the intention was for it to be fast paced, and I think we can all agree that the drone does a really, really good job despite the earlier teething problems. So what about the moment where I nearly crashed my DJI Mini 3 Pro then, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video? Let's take a look at that. And I have to confess, this was pretty much human error. The reason for this is because when we are trying to track in parallel mode, we do get the warning that obstacle avoidance is unavailable in that mode, and that's because we do not have side obstacle avoidance sensors, like I've already mentioned. But maybe me thinking I've taken care of every eventuality. Of course, remember, accidents are accidents for a reason. You can plan with the best will in the world, but sometimes the unforeseen does happen. I basically assessed that the situation was perfectly fine, and I thought I'd give it a go anyway. As I clicked to execute the active tracking, we came within, well, let's just say very, very close to this street light. As you can see, guys, that was pretty squeaky bum time. Let's just run that again in slow-mo so you can see just how close we did actually get. And if we look at the speed down at the bottom, the drone was certainly accelerating pretty quickly in order to catch up the car and put it in the centre of the frame, which of course we selected. Now, this is certainly where visual line of sight is important, where you are using active tracking modes. This does allow you to physically have your eyes on the drone because we're not having to frame the shots. Basis what had just happened in the entire situation, I did not feel comfortable completing this flight. So what I did do is actually just return the drone, okay, and then what we tried to do is just a completely separate shot again, which of course absolutely worked perfectly. If we just do run that shot a little bit further, you can see the car gets followed perfectly fine by the drone. So to summarize then, what do I think of the active tracking capabilities on the DJI Mini 3 Pro? Well, overall, I think we could say that was a complete success. I mean, realistically, the drone did an absolutely fantastic job keeping that car in frame at varying speeds in strong winds, and of course it was really, really cool to watch just how good the drone can maneuver whilst performing these shots, and certainly we did get some absolutely incredible footage. But of course it does have its limitations. I did have to fly higher than what I originally wanted. Of course, there was the incident where as the car was getting out of shot, it just randomly selected a different car, so that was a bit of a fail. And then of course, basically when it came to the parallel shots, it wasn't really great because then you're opening yourself up to be able to potentially crash into something, and that's of course not great. So potentially, even though Active Track does work absolutely awesome if you're by yourself in a closed environment and you're looking to get some cool footage, yeah, absolutely great. However, personally, as I've always said on the channel, there's no substitute for manual flying, and I think for some of these shots, manual flying would certainly give you a much greater scope to capture the shot that you want. But of course, that's just my opinion. Please do let me know what your opinion is in the comment section below and how well you think this drone did in this active track test. So of course, that wraps up this video. You know how it goes by now. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more of this stuff, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, see you again soon.